Hello and welcome to the Two Bald Brothers on a Microphone podcast. This is your host, Danny Ryan. I am here with Tommy Ryan, the other bald brother. How are you doing, Tommy?
I'm doing well.
Good. What are you drinking this morning?
It's a grande flat white with coconut milk.
All right.
Yes, my favorite.
All right. I've gone dairy free.
Yeah.
Because I don't know whether I know.
Well, not really, but for coffee drinks, I
usually do. Yeah, I know Deanna. I think she's lactose intolerant. I don't know if that's the same thing. I think I have an allergy to dairy. I did that Whole30 thing for a while, and then and what you do is you cut out a bunch of things and you start adding things for a couple days and see how your body reacts to it. And I had dairy when I had introduced dairy back into the diet. The day after I did it, I woke up that next morning. I felt like I had a hangover.
Yeah,
my body was not reacting right to it, and so it may have been something to do with the bottle of wine that I drank as well. But
yes, it's called a confounding factor.
I introduced milk and wine back into my diet. For some reason, I haven't. No, it's very difficult for me though, because I just recognize how many things were like, I love ice cream. Oh my goodness, I enjoy ice cream. And then what I've done in the morning is I'm now having the almond milk, which isn't too bad with cereal. I'm not going to drink it straight up, but so I feel a whole lot better without dairy. Mm-hmm. So I guess it's just more like an allergy type of thing. Yeah. But it's tough to cut out. I mean, it's amazing how many things do have dairy in it. But so you have a little bit of caffeine in you this morning. Did you see any of the write-ups from the Apple event yesterday?
No, I watched some of it. And
I plan on going all over the place this morning. Sorry.
Okay. What was interesting to me was the watch features. That basically find AFib.
Yeah.
And then also the ECG capability. Mm-hmm. I think those are some powerful things. I don't know how relevant that is in terms of heart health monitoring. What aspects of monitoring are the key measures to keep on top of your heart health, but I think that's going to attract a lot of people that are in their 50s and above, that maybe in 40s above, that want to stay on top of a heart incident.
Yeah, I'm a Fitbit. I have Fitbit Versa, and my focus for my smartwatch. I want it to. The battery life's really important to me, and then I just use it for the fitness features.
Right.
And the other thing is the notifications. I like that. You can set it up to say which notifications come from your phone over to your Fitbit. So that's ends up working out well for me. And then, beyond that, I see a lot of the things. I had an Apple Watch for a while, and then I was at a point where I just got tired of charging. I felt like it was my role in life was to keep all my Apple devices charged.
Yeah.
So you just get into habits.
I just got in a habit. I've got the stand that has the watch that you can kind of set it on its side. And it has some cables that come out the front. They're USB ports that you can connect multiple short cables.
Yep.
And so my AirPod phone and Apple Watch all get charged at night, and they mostly, the watch sometimes won't make a day now. I've got a Series 1, so I've had mine for quite a while.
Oh, really? That's the first series?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
so are you going to look at the 4? Maybe ask
I'd like
from
to.
Santa Claus?
It's starting to. It's definitely very laggy, and when I bring up like the alarms, built-in app, it takes forever for it to show up and allow me to pick and configure an alarm. My most used feature on the watch is setting timers. And the alarm in the morning. I get up before Linda and not having a regular alarm, but an alarm that buzzes my arm, allows me to get up without waking up Linda in the morning.
Nice, yeah. And I can do this. I've got that as well. And then I've got a special clock face that tells me like the temperature outside and my beats per minute. And I think the other thing as well with this is I like the steps are so simple. I mean, I understand I had the closing rings before, but it's a little bit just vague. Like I've been really getting into trying to set daily goals, and I think that's one of them that I know that just like, I set that step goal, and it really helps me. And I try to do over 60 minutes. I mean, my technically my goal is over 30 minutes a day, but I try to do over 60 minutes a day of some form of exercise. And that's typically like I did a walk this morning, and so it's going out for a walk is I just enjoyed, like this morning I ended up taking Connor out to the bus, and I've never done this before, but I just went for a walk right after bringing him out to the bus, and his bus comes at 6:22 typically, which is really early. It was nice just walking around the neighborhood. Right. It was a nice little walk. And you're getting ready. So you've got, I always get the two mixed up. Ignite coming up. Envision.
Which is the same week as Ignite, which is interesting.
It is.
There's some people that are going to both, trying to flip-flop. Going to
the Ignite's in Orlando, right?
Orlando. I don't know where Envision is. It might be Orlando.
Okay.
I'm not sure, to tell you the truth. I haven't looked that up, but I know some people that I'm reaching out to are saying either I'm not going to Ignite, I'm going to Envision, and some that are saying first half of the week Ignite, second half Envision.
Is that's the Dynamics one, or okay? Yeah, that's one we've never been to that one.
Yeah, a lot of the SharePoint people that I thought would be at Ignite, it's a good number they're going to.
Are they transitioning over to do more Dynamics work, or?
They got the short stick, I don't know, for the conference. I don't know. I mean, some of it, they basically are saying we're trying to divide between, and they're kind of common as I would have been at Ignite if Envision didn't fall on the same week.
And then I've seen a lot of the emails going back and forth, just trying to meet up with other partners down there, and probably you're going with Pete and with Kirk.
Kirk, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, using LinkedIn, that's kind of gone through about half of it, just seeing contacts I want to meet up with. And gosh, it's a great exercise to think about, who I need to talk to, because you get relationships really strong relationships, and you get busy, and they fall back into the back pile of, emails. And when you start going through and looking at your contacts, it reminds you of some people that you want to still be in contact with.
Absolutely. And that, how far off is that? That's a couple weeks?
It's not this week, but next week.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you guys are driving down there for it? Okay.
Yeah, I'm driving with Linda. She's got her brother that's down there.
Okay.
We're going to visit before. I think after. I can't remember. I think it's before, yeah, because we've got to be back for a wedding. But and then Kirk and Peter, I think, are driving too. They're driving together.
Nice.
So it's not too far away.
The updates so far to the cafe and stuff that you've seen Pete and I are working on. Any comments, any things that you've seen that have come up that are good, bad, or neither?
Yeah.
Just sort of like how is this? And I think because a part of you're looking at it from not an outsider looking in, but you're Pete and I are going after a couple things together, and then sort of letting the group know what's going on. We're still heavily relying on Teams for a lot of things, I know. We've been also subtly trying to pull a little bit of the SharePoint modern experience into what we're doing. You're still primarily in Teams, I'm assuming, right now.
Yeah, and I am, but as I look at how things are starting to gel and come together as it relates to the SharePoint side of it, I know hub sites are very simple, but I do like the concept of going there and it being a launching point into relevant content that can be rolled up. Kind of a roll-up capability is something you don't have in Teams. And And so that's, I think, nice, and just navigation. I can go to the sales hub and get to the different teams that way. The reason I probably am in teams more is, at the end of the day, a lot of your work that's getting done is updating documents, at least what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I'm working with MSAs and SOWs and those things. You definitely want to be in the team. That's where you're going to get more value.
Yeah.
Is team conversations around that. And I do think the knowledge base, the things that are long-standing information that you want to curate, that the Teams is not an environment for that. I mean, Teams is very close to Yammer.
Yeah.
So that's a feed that has a certain lifespan. And yeah, you can use Teams to navigate and get into SharePoint content, but you can do that from SharePoint as well or better. So Teams is not necessarily the best UI to get into SharePoint, but it helps from a standpoint of having less tools that you bring up. So I can get into Planner, I can get into SharePoint, I can go through my conversations and stay in one tool.
I saw, it was doing a little bit of research on different, like what's the next types of migrations we can go after. And I saw a comment in Quora, because I think Quora is kind of cool just to go see what other people are putting out there. And one of the questions that I was reading was sort of had to do with enterprise social networks, and so the comment from the guy was basically like, okay, HipChat's going away, and there's just a SocialCast, which is another. It's sort of like the enterprise network, and they're like, is this boding poor for sort of in general for what are happening with enterprise social network? And the guy, there was a thoughtful response from somebody who was, sort of his take on what's happening right now, which is, companies like Salesforce and Microsoft are sort of recognizing that social is just it's more like a feature than it is a product. And less emphasizing it as a sort of this is the product that we're going out to the world with, and more of, well, you're social with everything. I mean, that's how work is done, and it's getting more integrated. And it was interesting for the person to sort of talk about, because he talked about Slack and sort of like that's how Slack's adoption, and then about Microsoft's response, which is trying to, take an approach where it's the one place to, sort of pulling all of the disparate services together into more of a central place that you're going to go get work done. And you typically get work done within Teams, which makes sense. And it was just interesting to see just the sort of his response to what's happening right now, which is the social features are sort of just becoming ingrained to sort of the products that we're using and are out there right now. And I think we've been having a lot of good conversations about, and this was going into this project, which I'm referring to Project Cobbler, what we're calling Project Cobbler, which was some of the content that we have is stuff that we're just working on right now, which might be in a team. And then there's some content that is long-term that needs to be in a place that I can go refer to again, which now I think we're moving towards the mode of keeping those in modern pages.
Right.
And, the issues with right now with putting it in a Teams wiki is it's not searchable from the web, and you have to be in Teams to actually get to it. The discussion stuff, we've had this discussion before, but that's again another place that is stored in Microsoft Teams, and it's not accessible from the web-based interface. So it'll be interesting to see, because I think eventually what Microsoft will probably do is probably have that content that the discussions and some of the stuff that's going on in Teams is having either a web part or some way of seeing it from the web, but some way of integrating this whole experience together, because right now it still feels a little bit disparate.
Mm-hmm.
But
which it always will be.
Yeah.
And it's tough when there's more choices.
What would be interesting is maybe what are the and I talked with Pete about this, which was taking our old wiki data. We used to store things in traditional wiki pages, and migrating that over into modern pages, which seems to be the way that we want to store long-term information.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think what that will be, right now we're going to manually one-off do those, take things and move things over. But long-term, I think that's the place where a lot of this content is going to be, that the modern wiki is a modern SharePoint page.
Yeah.
Sorry, I think out loud and rambled there for a while.
I mean,
but
you look at
this was something that we were going into this project. I was trying to figure out, which is right now, if you're working together as a team and you need to store wiki-based content, it's in OneNote. That's where it is.
Yeah.
And then long term, if there's content that needs to go into a certain place, that we might move it over into a modern page, or move it to a place where we're storing more of like knowledge-based type information.
Right.
And then, and as you said rightfully last time, a lot of this content just goes stale over time, and we extract out what we need to put on our public website. We just take what we need to from it, but not all of it's going to be relevant in the future.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I look at it. I think some of the challenges we have for being a small company and looking at how do we approach a migration is there's this, I think we have this temptation of we want to clean up as much as we can. And in a larger scale migration effort, a migration team just can't do that.
Yeah.
They've got to almost just migrate it all, and not, unless there's some very high level factors that they can take into consideration, like the last time it's been updated. If they want to say anything that's been updated longer than a year from now or 3 years from now, we're going to archive it. Yeah. And having those more coarse grain filters to put in place, is effective. But I think where we struggle, or at least I struggle, is I look at, there's probably in this technology wiki, there's probably only 10% that should come forward.
Yeah.
Well, how do you get to that 10%? And how much time do you spend before you say, well, we're better off just bringing it all over, or we're better off archiving it and having it available and just starting from scratch. I mean, you kind of get into those scenarios, and it blows our mind when we have some companies come to us too late to migrate, and they say, well, we're just gonna start from scratch, and we think that's crazy. But you can kind of, at our scale, sometimes you can see some, depending on what your knowledge is, sometimes it changes so quickly that knowledge that's 3 years old is not useful anymore. Except for, I think, more company-oriented information, like the stuff around your benefits, the stuff around certain forms that drive your organization. I
think that's the key. That's one of the things I'm learning out of this, is that there's content that you need to work to get things done in teams and on projects and things like that. But I think a strategy I might have taken a little bit differently in the past is trying to, maybe we tried to do this with the wiki stuff, but almost just having like you're separating it off into something that we know, that is a place that it's so tough, because you're asking people to think about, is this content, because like the technology stuff, it'll change after a year. Some of it they don't know when it expires.
Right.
But like for the company, like for operations things, for things that we know like have to stay around for a while, like one of the things I was thinking about doing was creating like a marketing operations manual, and just setting it up as a manual that like, these are all the things, like, this is how you do this. This is how you do this. It's stuff that I know, that I'm doing over and over process wise, and that I need to keep going forward, and sort of separating it off into some place that is, I know will be retained and will be moved forward, which that might be a good example of like, this is why you'd want to put it in a document versus a wiki, right? Mm-hmm. You might say, okay, let's describe, let's create a, instead of a bunch of wiki pages, which each one describes, okay, this is how you publish a blog post, or this is how you do, update this social network, or what, just all these sort of things. Maybe I should be putting it into one operations manual, as opposed to putting it into wiki pages, so that I know it moves forward, and I'm updating that document versus going and updating a wiki for it.
Well,
Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, I think as we're looking at people that come to us the last minute to migrate, I'm thinking about, well, how do we have a fast track program? How do we take people that, come to us with a month left or 2 months left, and the project is really 3 to 6 months long? I mean, how do we compress that timeline, and what shortcuts can we take? And what comes to mind is like, take all the document content, which that's simple to migrate and even stage, maybe even outside of SharePoint if you had to. And then your collaboration, your collaborative documents that are in Jive, turn them into PDFs, and we take those two things out, and those are the core of your knowledge. Yes, you've got discussions. Yes, you've got this. Yeah. But, it's kind of the 80-20 rule. Let's get the 20% of that's going to have the 80% impact on your organization. And it's not pretty. You're going to maybe lose some things, but in the grand scheme of things, you probably won't miss it. It's probably going to be good enough for your situation. Mm-hmm. So putting it into documents, I think, is a more portable format.
Yeah.
I think as time passes and you go from platform to platform, documents are portable. I mean, and that's why a lot of times you create them so you can take them outside of the system and send them in an email. Yeah. So if you have them in that format inside of your intranet, it's still searchable. It's still able to be brought up in the browser, and it's extremely portable. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think we ran into looking at like where you have this hybrids, like with Jive, where you have collaborative documents, where it's like it's a hybrid between the two, which was interesting to run into some of those types of things where it was, what is the content in there? Is that something that needs to move forward or not? And I think we're running into a lot of this social content. It's you want to like what is the value of that, and is it worth the what does it look like moving forward? Is it worth it for I know for us. I think a lot of it needs to be I think it needs to be there in case you need to look something up.
Yeah, what I've found when I think about social content, and when people look at, I want to move things from Yammer, or move things into Yammer from a social network. Mm-hmm. And I think, gosh, all that stuff is really only valuable within the hours or minutes or days, at most a couple weeks, when that was shared and those conversations took place. It was there to accelerate decision-making and accelerate collaboration. I think social does that for you. It raises the awareness and visibility to get more people quickly to swarm around a problem. Kind of what we saw with Groove back in the day is you saw, there's people in this workspace, and we go, what are they looking at? And then you're swarming around a problem. And in terms of going back and looking at that social content in the future, 1 year from now, do I want to look at something that I had a conversation on today? And I always thought no. And where I'm starting to change my mind is, well, it's the social content that surrounded a document. And so if I have an SOW that I was working on, 3 months ago, I can pick up on where was I last, what were the last conversations, to give me some context as I go back into that document.
But wouldn't that be comments in the document? In an old version that would have comments in it?
It would be comments, yes. It would be. So, I mean, you could say,
but now you have
for
teams.
A practice, always put it as comments in the document. Yeah. What's clean about comments that are in teams around a document is you break those comments off. You don't have to go clean up those comments, and you can keep those comments when you go share it with somebody. Now, you could do that. You could go and into the document, get rid of all the comments, and then send it to your client. But the only way you can get those comments back in is you have to go back a version and then start making more comments on it. I can send multiple versions, and I can go back and see comments pretty quickly without having to go back and revert to a previous version to go see the comments that I deleted in the document. Yeah. This gives you lightly coupled comments to it that when you send the document, the comments always stay behind. You don't have to worry about those comments.
Just as long as you're staying in Office 365 and have Teams, you're fine, but you can't move it anywhere else.
Right? Yeah. It's lock-in. It's lock-in. That type of capability.
I know. We're fine with lock into Microsoft, but. All right. I think that's the damage is done for the day. It looks like we have our sales stand up, so we'll wrap it up with that. I appreciate you taking that. Anything new that you've learned about the Tesla, or any updates with Iron Mountain Organics, or anything last minute?
I put a blog post out kind of on the logo creation experience.
Nice. It looks great.
And I got another one coming up, as I'm taking notes on what is my first year experience with the garden, kind of lessons learned. It's flying by. It seems like it's been 5 years that I've been in the garden, but it's been less than a year since I've got the fence up and I've got serious about it. So a lot of things.
What are you harvesting right now?
Right now it's peppers, and I'm starting to do fall seeding right now. I've got some seedlings for beets and chard and kale and broccoli and cauliflower and cabbage, and we'll see how that goes.
Well, thanks everybody for spending a little bit of time with the Ryan brothers, and appreciate your time, and have a wonderful day. Thanks, Tommy, for doing this.
Sure.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.